Alright, let's look at the question, will California's drought cause an economic collapse? Now, discussion of any CUSIP or security is for discussion purposes only. Do not buy any security mentioned in this playlist unless you perform your due diligence. Note that I purchased shares of Lehman Brothers 3 days before it collapsed, so anyone following me into a trade is taking excessive risk and may lose significant financial value. In addition, at the time of this video, I may or may not own shares of the company mentioned and may or may not have kept those shares depending on what circumstances changed. So a quick note here, just an update. I have been reaching out to the state of California about desalination solutions. I've also reached out to the NASA scientist who wrote the article about California has 1 year left of water. So it's getting a lot of attention in the media, right? He hasn't responded. For a state that's running out of water, boy, they sure are taking their time. And I mean, they are really taking their time. If they really have 1 year left of water, then, man, I would kind of have a sense of urgency going on. Either way, regardless, whatever's happening over there in California, I stand by my assertion that California is worthless. And relative to Texas, they're proving the point. You know, you don't wait on things like this. This is, by the way, this California drought causing an economic collapse, and this is specifically to the U.S. This is a perfect example of what happens when you play kick the can down the road, right? You get into this habit of procrastination, and then there's something that happens like a drought that you can't procrastinate on. And you have to do things quickly and early. So see, the thing is, for instance, if they were to call up STW Resources and Salttech and build a desalination plant, it's true, it would take a couple of years. Now, it would be good going forward. But the problem is by kicking the can down the road with what they've been doing, there's been a drought now for 4 years, so it's not like they didn't know this was coming, right? They just keep betting on the fact that, well, the next year we'll get enough water. No, that's not a good bet to have. You should always have a backup solution. Just like you should always have money in savings to fall back on, you should always have a backup solution. With a desalination plant, just as a case in point, you can always turn it on if you need. But you don't have to keep it on all the time, right? But you can always turn it on when you need it. This would be a great time to have a few of those, to be able to say, okay, let's turn it on and give our farmers water. So one of the things people don't realize really fast is that the Great Depression was caused really by the Dust Bowl. That's what started it, precipitated it, okay? So if California's drought continues to get worse, and I don't think it will be this year, but it'll be next year. Could be wrong. Because again, these NASA scientists, if there was really 1 year left of water, if there really was, they would have responded immediately. They would be desperate for solutions. By the way, I spoke to the CEO of STW Resources, and nobody from California has reached out to them. So again, this is not a state that thinks it's really running out of water. This is a dog and pony show. So it'll be next year. They're going to continue to have a drought. There's supposedly a 100-year drought coming to California and Texas. So the thing is that probably next year you're going to see this if it continues. What will happen is food prices will start spiraling up, and you'll see food prices go through the roof. When that occurs, just like with oil prices, when they spiraled up, people won't be able to afford their home. The problem is that no matter what the Federal Reserve does here, the Federal Reserve is powerless with the drought. They can't solve the weather, right? So the longer that California's kicked the can down the road, and if they still haven't reached out for an actual solution, then it's another 2 years. Well, in that 2 years, you start having things dry up. What I mean by that is money starts drying up. People pull money out. They collapse. People may run to farms, to produce their own food. This, by the way, is one of the reasons why Jim Rogers, myself, and others are bullish on agriculture. Like, you're going to see the end of, you might see the end of people like institutions like banks, because you only have so much food, right? This is what people don't realize. The reason why you have food at Walmart is because nobody's buying food for a month. They're buying food for the week. If all of a sudden people start panicking there's not enough food, and they start buying food for months and years, you're going to run out of food immediately. And there may not be enough food coming from California for all this. So this could end up being a huge problem. The good news about this would be it would finally re-migrate America. There's too many people living in California and in New York and Florida, and there's not enough people living in the Midwest. The Midwest has a huge amount of jobs. They can't get enough people to live there because living in Nebraska is not as cool as living in Florida. Well, cool doesn't make the economy go, right? And so people need to start migrating, and the way that you do that sometimes is wages and cost of living. But the other thing is when you finally have an economic collapse, people no longer, they don't care about cool anymore. They start caring about, how do I eat? And so they go to where there are jobs. So there is a possibility that this drought will offset an economic collapse. I still think, though, that it will take until next year. You don't reach out to politicians about a drought and scientists about a drought and and even journalists about a drought and get no response if it's really that urgent. I think a lot of these people know that there's a couple of years left of water. If their drought continues into next year, though, I think they're going to get very desperate. And they may be really going nuts by that time. So, with that being said, I'm going to continue reaching out to them and figure out a way to make it more public. If you want to share this video on Twitter, YouTube, wherever, go for it, because I'm trying to get a hold of anyone in the government of California who can make a decision about the drought, or a journalist who's more than willing to write a story, or pretty much anybody that can get a lot of attention from a bunch of people. Because if there really is 1 year left of water, hey, here's a good solution for them. That would definitely help, and help a lot of people in California, as well as the U.S., avoid a massive depression.